disruptions, from the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic to the ongoing war in Ukraine. And all these have ushered in fresh series of crises, including food, energy, and disruptions in global supply chain. The transmission effects of this crisis have indeed aggravated economic challenges on the continent and also in Nigeria. For us in Nigeria, we have seen the return of older risks, including inflation, cost of living crisis, capital outflows, widespread social discontent, risk of geopolitically motivated regional confrontation, and recently the marked risk of de-democratization of West Africa. These risk factors shaping this very uncertain and turbulent period will only favor a prepared, resilient, resourceful, responsive, and responsible national leadership. Earlier this year, we at the NSG engaged the country's political leadership when we hosted the first ever one-on-one closed presidential dialogue session before the elections in March. And that session allowed our members and indeed the citizens to hear directly from the three presidential candidates. Mr. President, thank you for keeping faith with us then, and also thank you for keeping faith with us today. You had promised back then that you will work with the NSG and you will be at our summit. So thank you for being here at the 29th successive economic summit. And this is the longest standing unbroken national public dialogue on the continent. In the last decade, the NSG has kept faith with the government and Nigerians in our four critical roles as a dialogue partner, a watchdog, connector, and intervener. Our cooperation with the public sector has led to crucial summit outputs, some of which include the creation of the Presidential Enabling Business Development Council, PEBEC, whose work saw Nigeria improve the ease of doing business rankings. Our work also includes the setting up of the office has led to the passage of landmark legislations, including the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020, the Petroleum Industry Act, the Seed, Fertilizer, and Plant Varieties Act, amongst many others. As the stewardship of the seventh consecutive democratic transition of power passed on to this administration of the new Pope, Your Excellency, your administration's unveiling of the 8 priorities of government, which focus on economic growth and job creation, ending poverty, access to capital, inclusivity, food security, national security, fairness and the rule of law, and of course, an anti-corruption stance, provides a strategic perspective of your government's grasp of both the issues and the solutions to the problems facing our nation. And of course, also the need for the transformation of the Nigerian economy into one that is competitive, sustainable, inclusive, and open. But this will only be possible if both the public and private sector leaders work together towards the same national value and vision. Hence, this year's summit has been calibrated as a burning platform to answer the question of the essential pillars of economic transformation that will get us to the future envisaged by the government. The need for urgent strategic shifts that impact the ease and the cost of doing business within a relatively short time is a matter of existential threat to the survival of enterprises and of entrepreneurs. The low access to and the increasing cost of FX, the high cost of inventory, of imported inputs and operations, coupled with the diversity of taxes, continue to erode business balance sheets with resultant contraction in production and in employment. Large firms are battling with low capacity utilization, while medium, small, and micro enterprises also grapple with multidimensional complexities. And of course, these poor economic outcomes have created worsening social conditions that cannot be taken for granted. With more than 100 million of us being multidimensionally poor, there are potentially more risks of stagnation and distress if a low growth and low investment era persists. The future of the Nigerian child is also at stake across every geopolitical zone. Also, the Nigerian aging population is equally at risk. There is a high prospect that retiree savings and investments will be eroded entirely within just a few years into the first or second decade of retirement. Our high fertility rates, which is driving a very high population growth, higher than our economic growth, also poses a risk of an unproductive population bulge, with an unmanageable social infrastructure cost and a huge burden for supporting our children's health, nutrition, and education. We know a multi-trillion-dollar economy is viable within a decade of serious reforms, consistent economic action, and deliberate institutional reforms. Our nation stands at the critical precipice, and our challenges demand immediate, concerted efforts. We need to act now with a shared sense of urgency. Your Excellency, a multi-trillion-dollar economy growth trajectory will urgently require certain actions, including the following. 1, a macroeconomic stabilization program supported by an aggressively scaled national security effort to halt all forms of syndicated and organized crime around crude oil and solid minerals. 2, a Made in Nigeria agenda. To make in Nigeria, however, 2 strategic drivers must be put in place. First, the National Emergency Energization Program to ensure easy access to stable, predictable, and affordable electricity supply. Second is the creation of the National Infrastructure Corridor Development Program that will ensure an integrated linkage and logistics network that will link value chains to sea, land, and airports. 3 is a national job creation plan that drives the creation of huge volume of high-quality jobs. The 4th action, we believe, will be a revised national asset optimization plan that will ensure that critical national assets are fully utilized and are fully productive. If we must sell, concession, commercialize some of these assets to achieve desired level of productivity, we should. 5, a national competitiveness plan that defines the sectors where we have a competitive advantage and export and expansion targets to achieve a trade surplus and a positive balance of payments. 6, it's a capacity building plan that answers the type of skills, competencies, expertise, and technology know-how required for the Nigerian workforce for a digitally industrialized Nigeria. 7 is a new compact with the Nigerian child that guarantees a promising, secure, and safe future for every Nigerian child. And lastly, 8, we need to revitalize national security policy and strategy to protect lives, properties, and our national assets. Achieving a multi-trillion-dollar economy will require significant paradigm shift, big, bold actions, tough choices, and significant sacrifices by all of us. We are all living witnesses to the outcomes of delayed and deferred action. The NEAG stands ready to support the government to model the tough choices required and the associated palliative measures to ameliorate the short-term impact on the populace. In closing, I also would want to express my gratitude to our members, our private and public sector partners, and the international community for their dedication, participation, and belief in the realization of a stable
sector, which was codified in the National Planning Act and the mandate of the ministry, among others, includes consensus building together with the private sector in ensuring that both long-term, medium-term, and annual budget plans reflect the consensus of both the private and public. Equally, especially for us in the ministry, which is one of the ministries that have been recently incorporated courtesy of the institutional alignment of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's efforts to align ministerial functions so that we generate more economic activity and growth. And as acknowledged by the chairman, Dani, that today is an important day because it shows the president kept his promises. His being here today, earlier than even scheduled, is a promise kept. Because when we accompanied him to the interaction with the NESG and the presidential dialogue series in Lagos, he promised that it is not going to be a monologue, but dialogue. He promised that he was going to interact and hear all shades of opinion, and he has been doing that since he was sworn into office. So, Mr. President, we thank you. I've been restricted to welcoming you here, Mr. President, because we don't want to preempt all that your speech will tell us, because of the commendable efforts you have put in since you became President of Nigeria. So I will skip that. However, I can still talk about the past for conclusion. At the Presidential Dialogue Series, a lot has been said about the achievements in Lagos and similarities in the challenges of 1999 with our current challenges. Low revenues, the international economic environment similarly challenged. And I don't want to say this, but it helps to focus. Then Lagos Telecom now was being challenged by the federal government. But yet, you are imaginative, you are head revolution that took place in Lagos was for many of us who lived in Lagos prior to 1999. There was a time when crossing the Apombon Bridge was a nightmare. Area boys would knock on vehicles, and even a pregnant woman could not be rescued by other motorists. Everyone would turn away his eyes. But you came and you saw the humanity and made them members of a functioning labor society. And today, among other challenges, Nigeria is faced with that pressure for inclusion, which you have made a central point of your 8-point agenda, and I'm sure that you will deliver on that. Thank you again. What we have chosen today, Mr. President, is holistic in its conception and reflect both the renewed hope agenda and the 8-point agenda. So I believe we will hear from you as what we have done so. As you know, as all knows, the government have taken bold steps. In addition to that, Mr. President, we have commenced the process of mid-term review of the National Development Plan. The coordinating Minister of the Economy have already secured approvals from you, and we are coordinating the review and incorporation of the renewed hope agenda as well as the 8-point agenda into the 8 priorities area of government, into the national development. We are carefully committed to the implementation of plans, including the Agenda 2050, because it is an irreducible minimum of commitment to some consensus by all, especially in a federal setup like Nigeria, which you have always believed, or which you have always led, that should be recognized as such. We are a nation where in every financial year, at least 800 public budgets are presented, 774 in the different local governments, 36 budgets in the state, and FCT, as well as the federal government. So there is an irreducible minimum of policy linkage and coordination that is required in order for this to deliver the promises that Nigerians hope. Particularly, again, these are plans and policies that every time the private sector at lower levels and higher levels of our corporate oneness look at for direction or complementarity or for seriousness. Therefore, underscoring the need to ensure that at a minimum, some irreducible consensus is reached. The Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today's event has been structured to include plenary sessions, interactive panel, breakfast sessions, debates, as well as CEO roundtable. And in fact, in a very imaginative way, the medium-term expenditure framework with the Federal Executive, which you approved and the Federal Executive Council equally discussed, will be presented and discussed as part of this event. I believe that is an innovation. The key thrust of the various sessions will be to facilitate stakeholders' discussion on practical issues, opportunities, policies, and strategies for guiding the sustainable transformation of our country. Your Excellency, I must not conclude without noting that your several engagements outside Nigeria and within Nigeria are quite noteworthy, and they truly represent that you are a president who believes that the private sector will be given pride of place, domestic and international. Thank you very much for supporting us. Thank you very much.
Roughly 23%, services at 57.9%, industries at 19.8%. When we look at the economic structure, out of the industries percentage of 19.8, 9.4% of that is manufacturing. We have heard from the chairman of the NESG issues that affect the growth of this country, particularly with regards to security. We are aware that if we do not take deliberate steps to fix the security issues that we have today, our economy will continue to remain stagnated. But at the NESG, we believe that working together with government, an economy which is prosperous is possible again, and we can get there if we all work together. We see a nation where today, according to the NBS, we've got almost 100 million Nigerians living in poverty. That constitutes about 43% of our population. That 43% is significant. I mean, in the life of any nation, if you have 43% of the population living in poverty, then we do have a problem. And it's something that needs to be fixed urgently. And we believe that our nation can get to a $4 trillion economy by the year 2035. As at the end of the year 2020, the Nigerian economy was a $450 billion economy. We have heard through the plans of the government, through their renewable agenda, how they plan to double the economy every 4 years to get to a $1 trillion economy. Additionally, if we go by the 2050 vision, the plan is to be at $3 trillion by the year 2035. But we do believe at the NESG that with the right pathways, which we will be reviewing today, we can actually get to $4 trillion. And of course, this is more so because we believe that we have a government now that we can dialogue with, that we can partner with, that we can speak to, and we can find solutions from the private sector